The internet was, may still be, a movement, a social phenomenon, called, the technical term is movement. Vince Cerf, who addressed y'all a few days ago, I don't know if he actually said this time when he was here, but every other time he walks around saying, I pee on everything. And internet protocol on everything. And the internet was a movement. In fact, it was several times a movement. And you can remember that it was a movement. For example, there was a time before the bursting of the internet bubble when the 7 most feared words on the internet were, "You just don't get it, do you?" So if you raise an objection to some stupid plan like pets.com, this little Silicon Valley smartasses would turn on you and say, "You just don't get it, do you?" So that was a movement, and it was inquisitorial and repressive and obnoxious and arrogant at times, and I was right in the middle of it, so I'm not shedding blame. Well, energy is a movement. In fact, I sat through most of today, and I could hear it. I could hear how much of a movement it is. Now, movements, and I'm going to really annoy you on this point, but so movements have slogans, like Vince Cerf's famous slogan, which I happen to like a lot. But they also have colors. For example, this is an early Ethernet diagram where the coax cable was yellow, so yellow became Ethernet's color. We had all the coaxes in the ceiling. They've changed colors now, but they used to all be yellow, and that was our color. Our movement, the Ethernet sub-movement of the internet movement, had a color. So energy. Has the energy movement adopted some sort of color? Green? Would you say there's consensus on that the energy movement's color is green? Well, my red is, I think green is the new red, actually. And it was Tom Friedman in the New York Times first raised this question. He said, is green really a good color? It's got all this baggage. I mean, green is environmentalism, sure. But it's also against all the ideas we need to solve energy. Trade, capitalism, America, technology, nuclear, hydro. Green is a terrible color if you consider all the baggage that it carries with it. So I, as a hobby, have decided to find another color for the energy movement. So I considered black. Well, I noticed that oil, coal, and silicon and carbon were all black. And then I realized silicon actually isn't black. Silicon is shiny. It's like a mirror because it rejects light. It's a mirror. But so black, and black's depressing. So white, there is white. We could use more white because if we could raise the albedo of Earth, we wouldn't have a global warming problem. So white, that's a good candidate. But white isn't really a color. So I then looked at photosynthesis and the absorption spectrum. So this makes it a scientific talk. And we looked at the absorption of light as a function of wavelength. And you'll notice that plants absorb light in the blue and the green, blue and the red. Even plants don't like green. So that leaves blue and red. And there's a NASA photograph, which kind of gives you a hint as to where I'm going on this. The blue marble. And then I became a submarine captain. Saw a lot of blue. So I think blue is probably the color that I'm suggesting for energy. So we can leave, let's let the environmentalists have green, and then those of us who are trying to solve energy will take blue. Now, implicit in that statement is some sort of separation between energy and the environment. That's annoying, isn't it? Every university in America has a department now called Energy and the Environment, or our Environment and Energy, and they're like the same thing. Well, they're not. I'm arguing that this is a false categorization. They're not the same thing. Now, there is this little CO2 link between them, but much is being made of that. But I claim these are separate problems, that if we solve global, we call it climate change now. If we call it climate change, if we solve climate change, then we would still have an energy problem. And if we solved energy, we would still have a climate change problem. So I think I would argue they're separate. So let's leave green for the environment and blue for energy. You annoyed yet?